Welcome back. I can't wait to dive into chapter 5 with you. I'm really interested to see what happens next in the story. When we last left off, Ben was invited to Mrs. Tibbetts. She asked if maybe he could help her around the yard doing some chores, and then maybe after he finishes with some of this yard work, they can go and explore and see what kind of interesting critters that they can find. So we're going to have to read to find out a little bit more about what happens next. Are you ready to read? Chapter 5. That afternoon, Ben carried the wood frog back to the place where he found it. He opened the jar and gently shakes the frog out onto a tuft of wet brown grass. The frog sits where it landed, its neck moving in and out with its breath. Go ahead, fella. He prods it with his finger. At least you get to go home. He nudges the frog again, and it leaps away. Ben squats down, looking around him. The rain has stopped. Finally, the clouds are passing quickly overhead, and he can see patches of blue here and there. A breeze lifts the smell of the earth up into the air. Behind him, a shrill call rings out. Eep, 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 eep. It's a spring peeper, the frog Mrs. Tibbetts described. Ben is sure of it. He tries to figure out where the sound came from. There's no sound of anything moving. These frogs are well camouflaged. He sits and waits. He hears it again. Eep, 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 eep. Nothing moves. Then he sees it. He's been looking right at it. The frog, no bigger than his thumb, is perched on the end of a stubby piece of grass. It's brownish green, the color of the grass itself, and across the back he sees the faint outline of a dark X that runs from both shoulders, the lines crossing on its back and ending near its legs. Ben darts his hands out to scoop up the peeper. But before he gets anywhere near it, the frog leaps into air and lands with a plink in a small pool of water near him, disappearing into the murky water filled with dark brown leaves and branches. Darn, Ben says, but he's smiling. Just seeing the frog feels like a victory. He squats there for a little while, trying to find another peeper, but he has no luck. His legs are stiff, and it's getting dark. Finally, Ben rises from his haunches and heads back to his house. The sound of the chorus of spring peepers fill the heavy air. Ben spends the weekend at home. He emails Lizard Man, hoping to hear back from him right away, but he gets no response. His mother asks him if he wants to invite someone over to the house. Ben shakes his head. Isn't there someone? She asks. No, Mom, there isn't anyone. On Monday morning, Ben gets to school early. He pulls out his unfinished math homework, hoping to get it done before the last bell. Danny Martin, one of Frankie Murley's friends, comes up to his desk and holds out an envelope. This is odd. He's never paid attention to Ben before. Here's an invitation to my birthday party, Danny blurts out. It's at the skating rink, Saturday morning. We're having pizza. He hands Ben the card and then hurries back to his desk. Ben looks at the invitation He wants to go to the party. He likes pizza, and he'd really like to be part of a group of kids. But he can't skate very well. And he's not really sure why Danny invited him. It almost seems like he had to. His mom probably forced him to invite everyone in the class. Jenny flops into her seat in front of Ben, and she sees him holding the card. Is that for Danny's party? Yeah. Are you going? I can't. I have a swim meet. Are you? I don't know. Even though he's never talked to Jenny outside of school, he wishes that she were going. It'll probably be fun, she says. The pizza at the skating rink is really good. Ben nods. The pizza is good. Maybe that's enough reason to go. Or maybe he could end up being friends with Danny. At lunch, Ben passes by the table where Danny and Frankie are sitting with a couple of other boys. There's no room for him at the end of their table. He chooses a half-empty table near the window and slides onto the bench. Hey, Ben! Ryan rushes up and sits across from him. Are you going to the party? Did you get an invitation? Ben shrugs. Are you going? Ryan asks again. I don't know. Come on. If you go, I'll go. And then we'd have each other to hang around. Ben gives his milk carton a shake and pries open the top. I really, really hope you can go, Ryan says. Ben feels kind of bad for Ryan. I mean, he's a nice enough kid in some ways. If only he weren't so hyper. Okay, Ben says, hoping he's not making a mistake. I'll go. A huge smile breaks out across Ryan's face. Great, cool, it'll be fun. Ben smiles back. Maybe going to the party won't be so bad. At the end of science class the next day, Mrs. Tibbetts calls Ben up to the desk as the students are leaving. Ben, she says, do you remember what I asked you last week about doing a little yard work around my house? Ben glances around to see if any of the other kids are still in the room. Uh-huh, sure. Well, I was wondering if this Saturday morning might be a good time. You could help me for a while. I'll pay you, of course. And then, if we have time, we could look and see what kinds of little critters that we might find out in the woods. The toads are out, and the spring peepers are calling, even in the middle of the day. Maybe we could catch one. How? I tried the other day, but it hopped away before I could get close. It seems like every part of the teacher's face crinkles up into a smile. Oh, yes, they're very quick. Did you use a net? No, I don't have a net. I just used my hands. Oh, a net makes it much easier, she said. I have a bunch of them. My husband must have left a dozen in our garage. I certainly could lend you one. Hunting frogs with a net sounds like a good time, even if it means doing yard work for a teacher first. Okay, he says. He can't help but feeling excited. Well, I'd better call your parents to make sure it's all right. Would you give me your phone number? And she hands him a notebook. Okay, sure. That'd be great. Ben writes down his phone number and hands the notebook back to her. I could pick you up around 10 in the morning, Mrs. Tibbet said, and I can pay you $5 an hour. Okay, Ben says. Some extra spending money will be nice, he thinks, but catching some frogs will be even nicer. He heads down the hall to Mrs. Kutcher's class. He's thinking about nets and toads and frogs when all of a sudden he remembers Danny Martin's birthday party. He smacks himself on the head. Dummy, 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 he says to himself. He'd forgotten all about it. He hasn't told Danny he's coming, but he has promised Ryan. And now he's told Mrs. Tibbetts that he'll help her on Saturday morning. There's no way that he can do both things. Over the next couple of days, Ben ignores the choice that he has to make, hoping that maybe it'll just go away, or that something will happen to make it clear what he should do. It makes his stomach hurt just thinking about it. Toads or ice skating? Kids or the science teacher? Mrs. Tibbet calls and talks to his mother like she said she would, and his mom thinks it's fine. And maybe you'll learn to like Massachusetts, she says, just like you love the desert. Ben doubts that, but he's still excited about exploring the woods. He doesn't even mind the thought of a little yard work. I mean, how hard can it be? But Danny's party is still a problem, though. He hasn't shown his parents the invitation, but part of him would like to go to the skating rink. Everyone will be there, and he did tell Ryan he would go. And he hates feeling left out, which is all he's ever felt since he moved. But then there are the frogs. He can't tell anyone else about working at Mrs. Tibbetts. The other kids would think he was crazy, working for a teacher and chasing frogs instead of going to a skating party. Ben can almost hear the peepers calling. He just can't get them out of his mind. He remembers the one that got away. It's going to be hard to catch a peeper. They're so fast, and they're hard to find in the first place. He just wants to hold one for 1 minute and feel it in his hands. By lunchtime on Friday, Ben still hasn't made up his mind about Saturday, but he's thinking he should go to the skating rink since he was invited to the party first, and he promised Ryan he'd go. And as he heads to the lunch table, he sees Danny already sitting there with no one beside him. Maybe I should try to be friends, Ben thinks. He's nice when Frankie's not around. Hi, Danny. Hey, Ben. Want to trade your fries for my pudding? Sure, Ben says. He hates banana pudding, and he really wants his French fries. But he agrees. And he's about to hand the French fries over when Frankie shows up and slides in on the other side of Danny. Hey, Danny, trade you half my fries for your pudding, Frankie says. Danny looks at Frankie, glances back at Ben, and then he says, Sure, yeah, great. Ben feels like a total idiot, just standing there holding a bunch of fries. And then Danny starts talking to Frankie as if Ben isn't even there. They laugh and joke, and Ben sits looking at his plate, still holding the limp fries. Forget it, he thinks. I don't want to go to your stupid party. When Ben and Agatha got home from school, their mother is waiting for them in the kitchen. She puts some snacks on the table and sits down. Ben, she says, I'm a little confused. About what? Ben asks. Well, I got a phone call from Danny Martin's mother today. Do you know who he is? Uh-huh. Well, she asked if you were coming to his birthday party tomorrow. Did you get an invitation? Yeah. Well, why didn't you tell me? I guess I forgot. Don't you want to go? Ben shrugs. No, I'm going to Mrs. Tippett's house, remember? But surely Mrs. Tibbetts would understand. She wouldn't want you to miss a birthday party. Don't you think you'd have fun? You might make some new friends. Ben is sick of hearing about new friends. I don't care about that, he says. I told Mrs. Tibbetts I was coming, and I want to go. His mother gets up and goes to the refrigerator. And without a word, she takes out a bunch of broccoli and some mushrooms and goes over to the kitchen counter. She doesn't mention the party again. But his dad does. After dinner, he tries to talk to Ben into going. Won't the birthday boy be disappointed? Aren't kids going to miss you? His father asks. The frogs can wait. Ben shakes his head. No one cares if I come or not. No one? Absolutely no one? No one on the planet. His father pokes him in the ribs. It makes Ben mad. No one, he says. But even as he says it, he wonders what Ryan will do when he shows up at the party and sees that Ben isn't there. His father frowns and scratches his head. He always scratches his head when he doesn't know what to do. Ben sometimes teases him about it, but not tonight. It's your life, bud, his dad said, but you need to make some friends. We're not moving. I wish we would. His father reaches out and wraps his arms around Ben's head, pulls him in close to his chest. But before Ben can twist out of his grasp, his dad gives his head a vigorous rubbing with his knuckles. I know you do, Ben, his father said, but we're not moving. I know it's hard, and I wish we could bring all of your friends and all of your critters and even a cactus or two here, but we can't. All you can do is try and make friends here. But I don't want to. Ben feels tears welling up in his eyes. I don't like the kids here. They're idiots. I hate it here. And I still don't have my box of things from my room. His father gives Ben's head one last rub and hugs him closer. Well, idiots are everywhere, even in Tucson. But there are good guys too, even in Massachusetts. You gotta hang in there a little longer. And hey, if you're not going to the birthday party, at least you'll get to see some critters tomorrow with your science teacher. Okay, so in this chapter, we learn a little bit more about how Ben continues to struggle to fit in and make friends at school. And he has a choice to make. Does he go to a birthday party, or does he go and look for some critters with his science teacher? Most kids would choose the birthday party. But since Ben really likes animals and he hasn't made any friends, he wants to go hang out with his science teacher and see if they can catch some spring peep frogs. So we'll have to read some more next time to find out what happens next.